What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's What's on Kickstarter. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the great, good, and not so good decks recently released on Kickstarter. But before we jump into it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And ring the bell.
And let's take a quick word from our sponsor here. One of our favorite decks of 2020, the Wonder playing cards feature beautiful 3D back designs and an amazing tuck printed by Clove Street Press. Check out the latest version, Scarlet, live now on Kickstarter. So I gotta say, Steve, it seems like we're back up to about that average 10 decks a week number this week, but there's actually some really good ones in the mix here this week.
Yeah, there's a couple of bad ones too.
Yeah, no, I think we got a couple that are gonna get a beware tag here, but I have to say, I'm really excited to see how many good decks are really coming out to the scene these days. I think there's a lot of good and great decks that are overshadowing, thankfully, those needs helps or those bad decks. And granted, obviously, part of the reason for this show is we want these need help decks to get better so that these creators can put out the artwork and the decks that they're hoping for, but obviously that's not always the case there.
Yeah. Do you think we'll ever see a great deck across the board?
I think that's a big ask, man. I think there's always, and here's the reason why. I think there's always something that can be better about a campaign. There are no perfect campaigns, and while a campaign can be great, it doesn't always mean it's always going to be great. And sometimes, depending on the week, we're a little more scrutinizing as to what makes the cut between great and good. And as we do more and more of this show, I think we actually refine what really qualifies as on the borderline between great and good, because there's some things that you and I talk about that previously may have been great, but now we'd say they're missing a little bit of something that really makes them great. Yeah,
no, I totally agree. The evolution of Kickstarter.
Absolutely, man, without a doubt. So, you ready to jump into it?
Let's see. What do we got for the great deck?
All right. First up, this week's great deck is the Cammeo playing cards from Oxalis Playing Cards. I gotta say, I'm really excited about this one. I really liked the Oxalis first deck that they did. It was that really kind of like floral looking deck. Yeah. I'm blanking on the name right now, of course, but that was actually a really well done deck. They've just recently fulfilled it, waited to fulfill, and now they're kicking up a new campaign here, which to me is such a creative idea, touching on the cameos of old, which I think people still do cameos in a very kind of different way, but they're so beautifully done. So jumping into it, we have a great story here with some really nice visuals. We have some really good story about the deck, and then what you can see here is you actually have a story about the creator as well. So you're not only getting that personal touch to it, but you're also getting the background sales touch for the deck as well.
Yeah. Two different colors.
Yeah, a couple different colors here available in it. It looks like a gold. It looks like two greens that look a little bit different, and then this gold version in the center here, which is pretty impressive. Yeah, so you have the standard, the silver, and the gold edition, all printed by USPCC. It looks like for the limited to the silver and the gold edition, the tucks are actually going to be done by Boschero and Newton, which has been doing some amazing work in the community recently. And then it looks like Gamblers to fulfill all of them. It actually looks like who's doing the cards for the gold edition there.
Is that Cardvo? What is that?
I cannot. No, it's not Cardvo.
Ludo Cards?
Ludo Cards, yeah. The one thing I will say there is that text is extremely small. Yeah. So putting that somewhere else as well hopefully would help. So let's see if we can find it anywhere else in here. It also talks about the stock, though. So we have the printer, we have fulfillment, really doing a great job putting together a fun campaign here. But looking at this thing, dude, this artwork just pops to me. I'm really, really digging this here.
Yeah, it's fun.
Some fully custom courts across the board, which kind of have a little bit of a Roman-esque feel to them there, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Talks a little bit about the history of cameos, which I think is interesting.
I love those aces. The aces are nice.
Yes, what's really cool about them is they're relatively ornate without being like overpoweringly complex,
Yeah.
Very nicely. It looks like the whole back design of the card is almost textured as well, which is interesting. Good. I'm looking. Got some good stretch goals here. Yeah. Hand-numbered special edition silver and gold edition unlocked. Metallic box for gold edition. Pearly metallic. Very cool. So some realistic stretch goals. They're a really interesting kind of run with it. Looking at a limited run on that as well. So I'm still looking to see who's going to be printing that gold edition here. So let's see. Now that we're under the header, if we can find it. Got some nice foil to it.
Here we go. And numbered. Doesn't say.
Yeah,
oh, right there, by Ludo
Cards. So I'm not familiar with Ludo Cards.
Yeah.
That's one of the cool things about this.
In the house.
Yeah, maybe. And it looks like they're going to be doing foil. So this will be a really a big one for them. Because if these come out nice, that's a new competitor for foil cards. I'd be curious to see how the cost factor of that was as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a video of it up top. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Build by Gamblers, awesomely done there, broken out as a separate section. Talks about the previous campaign as well, talks about the people involved in it. And then we have these nice little risks and challenges here. Let's see, we got our project doesn't present excessive risks besides the ones that caused by the pandemic. Yeah, I mean, listen, I always like to see a more robust risks and challenges just because it's always good to account for as much as you can, but I do think this touches on the core components that are necessary. I'm sure they could have found more things to touch on there, but this is still better than a large portion of the risks and challenges we see that basically say there are no risks and challenges, which is a lie. So,
yeah, what are we looking at price-wise?
Price-wise, we are coming in at $21 shipped for the standard.
Yeah, it's about...
Not a bad deal at all, especially with a really nicely done embossed tuck and everything. The artwork on this really is beautiful. For a fully custom deck, I really like the way they did this whole, like, kind of standard styling with this flat feel to it, and then these, like, almost Cammeo 3D reliefs for the heads. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I like the background in the court.
Yeah, dude. I mean,
pattern.
He's definitely caught my eye real quick, so really excited to see this come together here. I just love the story behind it.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say, too, is a lot of times we've seen creators put these latest updates up top. I think sometimes, unless they're highly, highly important, those can actually break up the flow of it. So it's always a good idea to maybe use the actual update function to focus on those more so than the campaign itself, because if you're coming in to tell someone that there's an update that's not necessarily relevant to them yet, it can kind of turn off a potential backer. But I think you guys are really working towards a great deck here. The other interesting thing about it is, looks like 9,000 gold for 3 decks printed. That's, all things considered, depending on what could be the difference between the standard and the silver. It may be the same cards, just a different tuck, and then the gold. That may fall into a reasonable price point there. Maybe a little bit higher depending, but all things considered, I'd say 9,500 is probably a good starting point for these 3 decks here.
Yeah.
So, good luck to Oxalis Cards. Next up for this week's first good campaign, we have the Powerful Playing Cards from David. So, I gotta say, this is a really interesting campaign. I actually really like the artwork to it, and anytime you see a bicycle deck, historically, they've been hard to not fund. And I think that may not be the case these days. I think there are collectors out there, hands down.
Changed for sure.
Yeah, there's collectors out there, hands down, who will pick up every single bicycle deck that comes out. But bicycle decks and bicycle branding does not guarantee a funding as it used to.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, let's dive into this. The one thing that immediately pops to mind here is the story is just images. And when you scroll down a little bit farther, you actually do see a breakdown of the courts and a little bit of a discussion around it. There is a very robust story created for this deck, but it's farther down than it really should be. That story should be the first thing you're hitting on this campaign to really ensure that people are getting drawn in and excited about it. To get amped on it is what you're going to get someone to continue scrolling through, and this is a very long campaign, so you want someone energized about this to make it to the bottom.
Extremely painfully long campaign.
So, and that's the one thing to consider. This is a great duality between Steve and myself, is Steve does not have as much patience for these things as I do. And so, think about it this way, people all have varying levels of patience, so you want to make sure that you're making your campaign as concise as possible while still conveying the story behind it. Diving into it here, we do see the features, very minimal features, 54 poker-sized cards, printed by USPCC, doesn't talk about fulfillment, dives into the Queen of Hearts and who's on all of these cards. The one thing I'll say is later on, you actually show the cards and talk about them, so it's a bit redundant there and unnecessary because this to me is just not visually appealing. It doesn't really jump out as something that I'm interested in. Instead, bring these pieces down here below the header and talk about it there. The other thing too is I would say that you would want maybe a paragraph blurb per court max end. The cool thing about this is you actually have an option here as a potential add-on if you want to do so, where you can include this more detailed information about all the courts into an art book. That's where people are more than willing to read a lot of this text. But for me, when I'm coming into this as someone who is trying to go through a lot of campaigns here, I want to make sure that I'm going as quick as possible to pick up as much as I can. All of this history about the courts, while interesting in a leisurely pace, that's not the time for it here. I think a good, succinct paragraph per court card would make the most sense. The other thing that...
Or just put the name. And someone like me, I don't care about all that other stuff in the beginning. If I want to look into it more, put the name in there, and if I want, I can look up the name on Google and find out more about that person. I don't need to see all 12 of them there.
So, and here's one thing I will say to that statement, is you're better to cater to the people who are not gonna go Google it than the person who is gonna go Google it, because you're gonna indefinitely lose people who want to know and aren't willing to do the research, versus like Steve said, yes, it may annoy him to have to read through, but if you just put a name and he's willing to go Google it, then he's going to stick around even if there's too much information.
Yeah, I'd like to know who actually reads all that. That's what I would like to know. So leave in the comments, let us know if you actually see a campaign this long and read it. I'm interested to know.
Cool. So the one thing that also stands out to me on this one is a lot of the artwork seems to be unfinished here. And while that's not necessarily problematic, as a first-time creator, showing that you have a very good grasp across the entirety of the deck is really important to build trust. So one thing that I usually would suggest here is to actually wait until your deck is complete to create the campaign and go live with it, or make it a very interactive aspect about creating the other work, because coming soon to me means that I don't know what this deck looks like and I'm not sure if I want to back it, because ultimately I could love every card you show here and hate the Ace of Clubs and Jack of Diamonds, and sometimes that's enough to make someone not want to back a deck. So with that in mind, you're better off coming to the table with a full project than piecemealing out some of it. Also, what you've built here is for these coming soon. Ideally, these should all be done before the campaign is completed, which means you need to be putting out updates frequently to show this artwork in progress and when it's created.
Yeah, and I mean, one big part is I think not having those in there, some people might be like, okay, I'll come back, you know, maybe in a week or two, and then they forget and they don't even come back to your campaign.
Yeah. Yes, always a risk there, which I think it's worth, again, having the full picture there, because then people can make the decision. And obviously having the full campaign completed isn't going to win everyone over. You're still going to have people who aren't going to back, but you're less likely to have people forget about the campaign.
Yeah, for sure.
So, very cool. Let's see what we got for the risks and challenges here. The other thing we haven't seen yet is fulfillment either. So here we go. Shipping is going to be by Gambler's Warehouse. Awesome. The one thing I would say is, again, we saw very short form features up top. It really wasn't labeled. I would bring a lot of this up to the top and duplicate it up there just to say, printed by USPCC on XYZ stock, fulfilled by Gamblers. Let people get those key details up top. And then actually a really well flushed out risks and challenges here. So nicely done there. And price, oof.
Yeah, the price is high.
So price point on this one, $26 shipped. So all things considered, that's really $21 plus $5 shipping. In reality, this looks like a pretty bare bones deck from a point of, you know, additions. It doesn't appear to be any embossing. It doesn't appear to be any foil. With that in mind, this is a $21 deck max end, shipped included. So
yeah. I mean, they're paying for that bicycle name,
which is minimal, all things considered, though, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think, 30 cents per deck.
Yeah. So all things considered, there is an added cost to it, but if you really take that into consideration, also the goal on this is extremely high for a single run deck. If you're printing 1,000 decks, which on a collector run is most likely what you're going to hit here, maybe 8 to 12,000 would be the ideal goal target there. 15,000 is going to make this very hard to fund as a first-time creator, first time out the gate. Part of that may, in fact, be because you're trying to include the shipping in as well, which you should, but that price point is going to be prohibitive.
Yeah.
Well,
good luck.
Good luck, David. And for this week's First Needs Help campaign, we have the Science Serious Playing Cards Chemistry Edition. So I'll throw this first out there. This campaign actually had some issues their first time around. The one thing that stands out to me is they've created a new account And I think that was also because of the infringement issues they had with it. So I'm glad to see them coming back to the table here and redoing this, because there was a lot of interest in this deck initially, and the cool kind of display flask as well. The reason, though, that this is a needs help campaign is because the campaign itself just really isn't fleshed out at all. We scroll into it, we can see there's zero story, there's a features section, and then it's literally just pictures and pictures, price list, and a very minimal risks and challenges section. This campaign, to me, has so much potential to actually be, you know, a cool story. There's really so much leg room to build a story around this and get people excited about chemistry and the deck and what's the background for it. What does the back design represent? Why a flask? All of these little things that are simple questions that should come to mind when generating the story are just left hanging here. So with that in mind, while they talk that this is going to be printed by WJPC and fulfilled by gamblers, there's just nothing about this that stands out to me as trying to sell the deck. So the way this plays out is you either love this deck or hate it, and there's no effort to convince you one way or the other. To me, that's detrimental as a first-time creator, because unless you have recognition immediately, it's very hard to get people to come and look at your campaign, and you want to be getting as much backing as possible. So we take a look at this. So far, they're almost funded at 79 backers. The thing about that, 79 backers in the scheme of playing cards campaign is about a quarter of what you would see on a pretty successful campaign these days. Ideally, the numbers you're looking for are probably going to be somewhere between 250 on the low end, up to potentially 1,000 on the rare high end. In reality, more so from that 250 to 500 mark seems to be a sweet spot for backers. So while it's great that this is going to fund, you're leaving so much on the table for this because of the lack of a story there.
Yeah. Good luck, man. How much have we seen there?
So we are looking at $19 shipped, which I think is great for just the deck, including the flask. We're looking at $39 shipped, so that's not bad. You're looking at $20 for the case, which, being a very unique case, it's probably pretty reasonable depending on the minimum order quantity they have to go with and everything on it. So to me, if you like this deck, $39 is quite a steal for it. It's a fun looking deck.
Yeah, it looks like it has 3 different decks.
Yeah, it looks like there's a red, a blue, and a gold version.
Yeah,
very cool, very nice design. Really looking forward to seeing how this plays out, but again, I think adding a story into this at all would have helped this go a long way to getting more visibility and more backers.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck. So let's take a look at what else we have this week. First up, for another great campaign this week, we have the Vacuum Tube Space Playing Cards. Really interesting campaign here. Actually, I really dig the style of it. It's somewhat futuristic with old tech, which is really funny, this whole vacuum tube idea. Really cool campaign by Dealey's Pro, which is the renamed brand for 52 Wonder. So not a first-time creator, though it is a first time on this account. Looks like they've really covered all of their bases here and put together a really well thought out campaign. A lot of information, hits on all the key points with the story, printer fulfillment, the works on it. So really excited to see this come into the table here. Looking at a $20 price point, which if you're into this fully custom style right here, can't go wrong.
I love that purple.
Dude, it's good looking,
purple,
right?
Purple gilding's nice.
Definitely good looking. And for another great deck this week, we have the Aton Playing Cards relaunch, inspired by Egyptian mythology, printed by USPCC. I have to say, this is a really dope deck, and when this first dropped, I was a little bummed to see them not fund, so it's good to see them relaunch, and I think that really goes to show that if at first you try and you don't fund, like, that's not the end of the road there. There are a lot of great creators now who ran into some hard times with their first campaigns and didn't get fully funded. So always keep that in mind. You know, it's always exciting to see a campaign like Aton come out here and clearly fund on their second time around, take some of the insight and the feedback they got from the first campaign and bring it home. So,
yeah, Egyptian themed decks do really well usually, so it's good to see them fund.
Absolutely. Good luck to them.
Yeah.
And for another great campaign this week, we have the Galaxia playing cards from Third Way Industries. No surprise here that this is a great campaign. Geo has been doing beautiful decks and great campaigns for years now. So for anyone who's familiar with Geo, 21 created, absolutely crushing it there. 20,000 goal for 3 decks. Really pretty reasonable, all things considered. That's probably factoring in shipping and what's going to sell on this. That's about right. Coming into it, you're looking actually at a $17 price point. One of the things I always love about Geo's campaigns is he makes it easy on the shipping side. Shipping is included in the deck price, so you don't have to worry about a $17 deck becoming a $23 deck. You know, it's really all important in these campaigns to make sure that from a sales point of view, you're making it as simple as possible. So for anyone out there who's always curious about the shipping, either including shipping in the campaign or including in the deck price are the two best ways to go. Sometimes we see campaigns pop up where they try and do shipping after the fact. We highly discourage this because it makes it much more complicated for budgeting purposes, especially when you have to realize that a lot of times people are factoring playing cards significantly into their monthly budget for backing. So great job on that, Geo. Definitely a absolutely spectacular campaign that anyone could use as a kind of template if they're a first-time creator.
Yep.
Good luck.
Good luck.
And next up for another great campaign, we have the Bicycle Barclay Mountains playing cards. I have to say, did a really great job with the story here. This is actually another relaunch for the campaign. RJ Tomlinson has done a lot of great decks in the past, so really excited to see him bringing this back. The first variation of this campaign, I think, was a little bit light on the playing cards and more on the belts, soaps, and playing cards.
Belt.
Yeah, and it looks like he's kind of retweaked it a bit. Of course, the belts and soap are there still for anyone who's interested in it, but the cards are now the main focus, which I think is spectacular because this is a really cool deck with a phenomenal story behind it. I highly recommend anyone who hasn't checked this campaign out yet to, if nothing else, give the story a read.
Yeah.
Oh.
I love seeing when creators back other things too.
Yeah, no, it's always fun to see. Look at that, 39 back. Good on him.
Yeah, it's cool.
And for another great campaign this week, we have the Collabs V1 playing cards from Nothing and C Cardist. So the one thing I will say about this campaign, really dope looking deck, has all our features there. Put together a really well thought out visual campaign for something that's obviously a cardistry deck where visuals come into play. So really love the campaign.
Nice and colorful.
It really is. And at the $20 price point shipped, it's fallen into the right area for this. You know, I think on Kickstarter cardistry decks fall right into that $20 price point. So I'm happy to see they're kind of in line with that for something that is a little more visual than a lot of, you know, the standard face cardistry decks we see.
Yeah, I like how they took one pip on each card and kind of randomly spaced it in there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Good luck to you guys on this one. And for this week's first good campaign, we have the Celtic Deck Resurrection by James Akin. So the one thing that really stands out on this deck, even though it is bicycle branded, which you don't see until this small picture here, there is no actual mention of who's going to be printing or fulfilling this campaign. Anyone could make the easy jump of saying bicycle is going to be printed by USPCC, but definitively putting in there is super important from a sales point of view. You want to have as much transparency into these decks as possible. The other thing that really stands out with this one is just there aren't a lot of pictures of the cards themselves. We see a spattering here and there, and I think there's a great story built out, but definitely throw a lot more pictures in to show off the beautiful artwork.
Yeah. Good luck.
Good luck. And for another Needs Help campaign this week, we have the Bloodborne 52, the Old Hunters playing cards. So I'm going to throw this right up there real quick. This is a beware campaign due to licensing issues. We see this very often, and I get it. A lot of people like the fan art style of commemorating a video game that they've loved from their childhood. And while that's all well and good, and it touches on it right here, the Bloodborne 52 cards are featuring a most favorite PS4 game, Bloodborne, the Old Hunters. This is a licensed product, which means that creating fan art for it is fine, but then selling said fan art is a violation of the copyright held by the company and probably trademarks around the names and things like that. So one thing that's a huge beware for this is there's a very good chance the campaign is likely not going to finish because of infringement claims. So if you are backing this, be cognizant of the fact that you may not end up getting this deck. The other thing that stands out to this one, and I'm not sure if they even mention printer or fulfillment here, I don't see a printer on it. I don't see fulfillment. It looks like it's going to be probably a generic printer, so the stock quality on this probably isn't going to be great. But yeah, to me, the big thing that stands out here is that beware aspect. You want to make sure that you are cognizant of the fact that unless someone mentions their licensing rights to recreate this, there's a good chance the deck's not going to fund or fulfill because they're going to get hit with an infringement claim. So be aware of that for all the backers out there. Make sure that you are aware of what decks are actually licensed, which decks are not licensed, and how that can play out.
Good luck.
Good luck. And for another And for another Needs Help campaign this week, we have the Kingdom Hearts inspired playing cards. This is also another big beware right up there. This is because this is also a video game inspired deck. So again, while this one says fan made, that does not allow you to capitalize on a commercial sale of someone else's rights. So with this one in mind, unless this mentions that it is licensed, there's a very good chance this is not going to be fulfilled. My manufacturer already printed some samples of the playing cards. The only possible risk is a manufacturing or shipping delay. That is 100% incorrect.
False.
In addition to that, there's really not much to this campaign that jumps out to me. While I see that they've kind of made it Kingdom Heart inspired, it's very bare bones from an artwork point of view and from a story, features, or information point of view. So who's going to be printing? Who's going to be fulfilling? Do you have licensing rights? These are all things that I would be absolutely jumping on as a potential backer to find out whether or not this campaign is even going to make it to the finish line. The thing with that in mind here, this is already funded. That does not guarantee that this is going to be made, because this could at any time in the next 24 days get hit with an infringement suit which will freeze this. As a backer, you will get your money back, but this is not a great way to start your Kickstarter career here. So something to keep in mind. Make sure you get licensing if you are going to go for a campaign or a deck that is inspired by someone else's protected works. Now,
yeah, good luck.
Good luck. And Steve, I gotta say, man, this was an interesting one. I feel like the past couple months we've had a lot more beware campaigns than I remember in the past, and maybe not so much just for licensing issues, but for a slew of different issues. But
I feel like there's been a lot of fan-made stuff recently.
And I think that's great. I love seeing fan art, but I think people need to actually do their due diligence and find out what the legal aspects of fan art are. You can post this anywhere you want online for no cost. Once you become a commercial thing here, and mind you, this is not legal advice, but once you try and make a commercial venture out of fan art, that becomes a problem because you're infringing upon someone's license rights. So whether it be a copyright or a trademark, and in both those campaign cases, it's probably both. Trademark on the name, copyright on the artwork itself. You know, there's a lot to unpack there. But what we will say is be cognizant that if you are going to back a licensed product, you want to make sure they have the licensing in place. Otherwise, you're just wasting your money and holding up your money for something else that you could back. You know?
Yeah, no, totally.
But with that said, man, what are you backing this week?
I'm going to keep my money this week, actually. I'm going to hold on to my budget.
All right. I'm a little surprised for that, man. I thought there were some bangers this week.
Don't get me wrong. Definitely some cool decks out there. Just not my my style. That's all. Right. But there are definitely some really cool decks. Yeah, I'm just going to save my money.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'd say on my end, I'm probably going for a Cammeo without question. That deck is just fire, and I'm really impressed with the direction that Oxalis went, because I thought they were going to be a magician-oriented company, and they've really switched it up with this collector's deck that looks beautiful. I also think the Galaxia in third way. I love Gio's work. He does a lot of effort into it. That would be one I would back this week. And then what else would I back this week, man? I know there's another one I'd throw in the mix there. Actually, you know what? Space isn't necessarily my theme, but I really dig the vacuum tube playing cards from Dealey's Pro. I thought that was an interesting one. I thought the artwork was really fun. To me, it almost had like a Magic School Bus Mrs. Frizzle vibe to it. So I really dug that. But yeah, I think those are the decks I'd be backing this week, man.
Cool.
And
good choices. Yeah. Good choices.
And for everyone watching, we'd love to know what you're planning on backing this week, or what new decks you actually got in this week. So make sure to leave a comment down below and let us know what campaigns jumped out to you. Let's take a quick word from our sponsor here. One of our favorite decks of 2020, the Wonder playing cards, feature beautiful 3D back designs and an amazing tuck printed by Clove Street Press. Check out the latest version, Scarlet, live now on Kickstarter. So Steve, you ready for the fun campaigns this week?
Dude, I'm always ready for this part of the show.
I feel like we may need to move this to the beginning of the show, because I feel like you get antsy up until this point. You're like, come on, where's the fun stuff? So
no, I enjoy it all.
Dude, we'll have to, maybe we just interdisperse them throughout. If you want us to start switching them up a little bit and throwing some fun ones in the beginning or the middle, let us know down below. Let us know what you think on that. We're always down to try a new style, how we fit these fun campaigns in.
Yeah.
Dude, I gotta say, I'm actually really excited for these two fun campaigns this week. I think they are absolutely big time winners here, and I'm double checking yours real quick, and it doesn't seem that there's any lighting source on it, so it should be a fair enough idea. You know, I think Steve's restricted now to 1 lamp per month, but
1 lamp per month.
unless he's planning on opening a lighting store, I don't know. But
I don't think I'm not planning on doing that.
not your jam? Well, in that case, why don't we dive into this week's fun campaigns? First up, we have the Phantom Robotic Chessboard made of real wood. I gotta say, man, this thing is insane. Not only does it move itself, not only can you play chess with a computer against it in person, you could have it play against itself. This could be a display piece alone that just sits out there and plays chess with itself all day.
That's cool.
For anyone out there, I feel like most kids at some point in their life get curious about chess for some reason or another. I know for me, chess always frustrated me because I couldn't figure out the strategy behind it. And one day it either clicks or it doesn't and you give up on it. But this is a learning tool for chess. Seems brilliant. This for just fun if you live by yourself but you enjoy chess and don't want to play on, you know, the computer all day long. This would be awesome, man.
Yeah, how much is it?
Let's see what we got. Not cheap, but also you're looking at $3.99 shipped. But I'll be honest, man,
Nice.
I've seen chessboards these days. I remember for a while there was like a trend of like crystal chessboards. Those things were a couple $100 anyway. So this right here is actually a board that allows you to play chess by yourself, or you could use it as a training device. You could use it as an art piece, or you could just use it as a regular chessboard. To me, I think that's really cool, and I think one of the areas that I really like about this, and I feel like I see this all the time in like movies, is where they play chess with someone else who's halfway around the world over the phone when they talk. And doing something like that, you could easily do that with this, which is super cool.
Such a cool idea.
It's really, I'm shocked this hasn't been done sooner.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, it probably took a while to do it.
Yeah. Well, and it looks like if you're, and the cool thing is though, it looks like you could play this while you're also away from home. So while it's built into an app there that plays chess, the pieces are still moving even if you're not there. So you're not stuck with the board to play the game, which is pretty cool.
Dude, you know the best part, not the best part about this, I don't want to take away from this cool, you know, board, but you can totally mess with people.
Oh my God, like haunted chessboard.
Yeah, you could totally screw with people.
And it looks like all of the pieces, which is really cool, they're actually handmade. So this is just
you know what I would really love to see with this is a totally clear board to see the mechanics and what goes on underneath that top level. I would love to see that.
That would be pretty dope. And yeah, it looks like there's 2 different styles and a whole bunch of different wood. You either have the minimal style or the classic style, which for me, I'm big time fan of the classic style of a chessboard.
Yeah.
That would be the area I would go, which bumps your price up a little bit. It bumps you up from $3.99 to $4.39 if you want birch, or $4.69 if you want walnut. But dude, this thing is dope. I'm genuinely shocked that this hasn't been done before. So this is really brilliant here, and that cordless Phantom version allows you to enjoy a great chess game wherever you are.
Open source too.
Which means that there's possibility for some sort of like API with this, where you could actually program your own tutor with it. There's so many different things you could do with this, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And absolutely dope campaign.
Good fun, man.
Dude, I saw this and I was actually struggling this week because I feel like there was a lot of stuff that just wasn't jumping out, or stuff we'd already seen. I saw the electric screwdriver again and I was like, oh man, how many electric screwdrivers do I need? But this thing really caught my eye, and I have to say, like, having always wanted to learn chess in a meaningful way, for anyone who wants to get a chessboard that would last them a lifetime and actually have added value to it, this looks like it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And for Steve's fun campaign this week, we have the pie.
Or tranquility, my friend.
I'm down with it, man. The pie, the Levitating Pyramid by Flyte. So, for anyone who doesn't know, Flyte is actually one of the original creators of that whole floating light bulb art installation.
Yes, which I have, but I didn't pick. But this isn't the light bulb, just so everybody knows. Has nothing to do with light.
This to me reminds me of like a scene from like The Fifth Element with Bruce Willis.
Oh, totally, dude.
Yeah, dude, too funny.
Yeah. And I wonder, one thing I didn't notice is if it actually lit up.
I did a quick scan, and I don't think it does.
I don't think it does either. But the reason why they're doing this campaign is to raise funds to actually make a full-sized installation of this pyramid pie, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically for anyone who doesn't realize, this is a floating pyramid on a base that spins, which is super cool and super kind of visual and relaxing. But at the same time, to fund a larger installation, I mean, you look at the scale of this, that is a huge, huge installation. I would love to see that in person. So this is a great way that the funding from this doesn't just have to fund the piece you get. That's almost more of the reward for funding the main project, which is really cool.
Yeah, look, I mean, Pi Iridescent, that would definitely
gold.
reflect light. But the iridescent one would probably definitely reflect a lot of
light,
different colors when the sun hits it, you know?
Not all about, oh my god, white Flyte pie with a built-in light.
Built-in light! It has a built-in light!
Oh my god, of course it does. Of course it does. Dude, this thing looks sick, though. Crystal glass pyramid based on Giza dimensions. I would love to see a crystal one with a light-up base. That would be sick.
Yeah, dude, this thing's really, really cool.
What are we looking at?
And I have, you know, I have the actual Flyte light bulb, and then I have the Flyte kind of little plant holder.
Yeah.
So it holds like a light plant, maybe like an air plant or, you know, a succulent or something, and it spins. It's kind of cool.
I'm gonna tell you though, man. For the same price, for close to the price point of the chessboard, for $100 less than the chessboard, that's what you're paying for this thing.
Yeah, but I look at it this way. This I'm gonna not use, I guess, but I'm gonna.
Please tell me you use this more than a chessboard.
It's gonna be utilized more because it's gonna be in my view all the time.
I mean, you could have the chessboard
which
in your
the
view all the time.
Too.
Here's the thing, though, too. Like I said, for me, the crystal one is the one that sold it, but for $360, that's a little out of my my discretionary fund for now. But
yeah, oh for sure, it's definitely priced.
100% is awesome. I absolutely love these like floating like ideas.
But
oh shit, you cut out there.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. They actually, yeah. Do you want to jump back a little bit, or?
We'll go back to where I talked about the price point. Like I said earlier, for me, the big one is this crystal one with this base here. And of course, that $360 price point is just a little out of my discretionary funds here. But I absolutely love the style of it, man. And again, if you're looking for an art piece around the house, this thing is dope. Yeah,
no, for sure. I mean, it is definitely pricey. Just pretty to look at for sure.
Do you imagine buying all 8 for $22.29?
Bro, I think someone who buys all 8 gives them away as gifts.
Oh, dude, they have an iridescent glass one as well.
No.
Yeah,
How much is that bad boy? There it is right there.
Yeah, that thing is probably
$600.
Probably.
You could probably only get it in the whatchamacallit, the pack maybe? Iridescent glass.
Yeah, I don't know, because I see the $3.99 for the crystal one, but I don't see the iridescent. So I'd be curious to see it. Maybe maybe it's only in the pack, dude. That would be the winner of the whole bunch for me, though, no question about it.
Oh, dude, yeah, iridescent crystal.
Yeah, that would be dope.
It's beautiful. They're definitely beautiful.
Absolutely awesome, and I love the idea of these floating pieces. They're really cool artwork, and I'm sure this thing will fun. 10 days to go, about 60-ish% of the way through. I'm sure this will hit no problem. And again, the cool thing about this is at the end of the day, it's funding an in-person art exhibit, which the world can enjoy, which I really like.
Yep.
Dude.
Good luck.
Some fun campaigns this week for sure, man. I gotta say, though, I love both of them. No question about it. I feel like every week, we each have our own favorites. I think they're both like, if I had $1,000 to spend, that's where it'd be going this week. No question about it. I'd probably have some buyer's remorse real quick, but I'd be okay with it because they would be visually beautiful. So,
yeah, I would only be able to buy one because I don't have enough room to put both of them anywhere. So
there you go. Just put them on your kitchen table and start eating on the floor. So
yeah, that's a good idea.
But for everyone out there watching, of course, let us know what campaigns you're backing this week, whether it be playing cards, floating pyramids, chessboards, or whatever under the sun that catches your eye. We always love to see what everyone is backing. Thank you so much for watching this week's What's on Kickstarter. Make sure to tune in next week to get all the latest, greatest looks at new Kickstarter playing cards. We appreciate you all so much. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe.
Bye-bye.